Sons of bitches. Got anything else to say? Now's the fucking time!
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends and foes? I still love you. I still love you. I don't really think I have any foes. Do I have foes out there? I feel like everyone, everywhere, has at least one foe. I mean, and maybe it's not a human foe. Maybe you're battling termites. Maybe you are battling moles in your yard that are eating your garden. Maybe you're battling the voices in your head, in which case you would be your own foe. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure I have some foes out there somewhere. I just don't know who they are. But either way, I say good day to you, sir or ma'am, or whatever the fuck it is that you go by. Welcome to the show. I appreciate you stopping by and listening to what I'm about to ramble about for who knows how long. I just want to start off by saying things in the old Pacific Northwest are finally taking a turn for the better. The sun is out. Yesterday, I believe we got into the low 70s. I don't know what that is in Celsius. I don't really care. It felt so good just to have a little bit of heat on the old skin. And I discovered a cool place, and I'm not going to say exactly where it is, because it's kind of like one of those things that's a locals only, okay? I refer to it as the Shire. Being a big Lord of the Rings fan like I am, and I don't care if that makes me sound like a fucking dork, I love those movies. I gotta say, I'm not the biggest fan of the Hobbit movies. I mean, I've watched them, like, they're good. But Lord of the Rings, I've always loved those movies. And I found a place in the general facility of where I live that I now refer to as the Shire. And it is such a lovely place. It's one of those places where you can go and it almost recharges your soul. It's quiet. Virtually no one goes to this place. I think I can count on one. I've probably seen 5 people total in this area since I discovered it. It's the most beautiful place ever. You're in the trees. The sun is shining through. There's lots of trails. Old Snoop Dogg has an absolute fucking blast running around, sniffing all the things, pissing on everything. We can run. Sometimes I just go down there and sit. I don't know if I would consider it meditating, because I'm usually like listening to podcasts and stuff. But sometimes I just go down there with no music, no podcasts. I just sit and I relax, and it's just like I'm existing in nature. You know, kind of like, I don't know, maybe how we're supposed to a certain extent. I think it's important for all of us to get out into nature, you know, every once in a while, if you're fortunate enough to. I mean, I do kind of feel bad for people who live in the, you know, quote unquote, concrete jungle. People who live in giant cities, and they don't, you know, I think people who are born and raised and never really leave, you know, big cities, wherever your big city may be, you know, I'm not saying it's your fault, like you don't know. But having the opportunity to live in an area of the world where we are surrounded by water, lots of rivers, lots of lakes, we're by the ocean, nature is everywhere. lots of forests, very dense forest, lots of places to hike if that's what you enjoy doing. Personally, I fucking hate hiking. You're not going to see me out on some trail, for the most part, hiking. That's not what I enjoy doing. I'll take my dog for walks on trails here or there, but like I'm not gonna go like I don't know hike around my like Mount Rainier or some shit like that. Like that's just, I'm not into that. If I'm gonna be on a trail, 99 times out of 100, it's gonna be a single track, and I'm on my dirt bike and I'm fucking ripping around. That's the kind of hiking that I enjoy doing in nature. But I do enjoy being out in the woods, and I do enjoy having nice quiet afternoons with just me and the dog, whether I'm listening to podcast or music or not. Maybe it's just the birds sometime that I'm hearing. God, it just really recharges my brain. And I gotta say, my brain this month has been pretty fucking scrambled. It's been very scrambled. Why, you ask? Well, I mean, I make no secret on this podcast that I may partake in a little cannabis, and multiple times during the year I will take a break. I'll give myself a week or two to just chill out. Well, I'm taking this entire month off. So here we are. What is this, the 16th now? I think that the main reason I did it, God, my sugar consumption was just getting out of control. It's just getting out of control. I am such a dessert fiend. I cannot stop. I have no off button. And it's hard enough for me to control when I'm stone cold sober. Like if there's a plate of cookies, it doesn't matter what time of day, what time of night, what day of the week. It doesn't matter where I am, who I'm with. Like if there's cookies, if there's fudge, if there's pie, if there's cake, I don't even really care for ice cream, but if I know that there's like, I don't know, ice cream sandwiches or, things like pudding pops, I'm eating all of it. Like we all have a struggle. We all have a vice, we all have that thing that just brings us to our knees and controls us to a certain extent. And for me, my whole life, that one thing has been desserts. All the desserts. All of them. All of them. And, as weak as I am when I'm sober, I'm even weaker, if that's possible, when I am high. So I thought it would be in my best interest. Maybe I should just take a break, And really, I wasn't sleeping great anyway, so I figured, what the fuck? Let's just fucking chill out for a month. Maybe longer, we'll see. I'm kind of undecided. I might just stop altogether. I mean, probably not, but, at least for April, I'm taking this month off. And it was the first week very, very difficult. Those of you who consume cannabis in whatever form, and for the most part, the reason I do it is because I have a lot of sleep issues, and I don't want to take any sort of prescription sleep aids. And cannabis definitely helps kind of calm my brain down, and it just lets me fall asleep. And usually once I fall asleep, I may wake up once during the night, but I'll fall back asleep again pretty quick, and I'm good for my maybe 6 hours, 6.5 hours, which for me at my age, and I don't know, maybe my past of doing a lot of shift work in my life, it kind of just ruins your brain in general. If I get 6 hours of sleep, I'm usually pretty recharged at that point. But when you stop cannabis, it's almost like it opens the floodgates to all these crazy dreams that, your brain has just been suppressing. And I have definitely been having some crazy, vivid, wild fucking dreams the first week that I stopped. I mean, waking up sometimes just gasping for breath because I'm completely convinced that what I'm dreaming is actually happening, that I'm having a physical response to what's going on in my brain. Man, that shit is crazy. And that's assuming that I even fall asleep in the first place. Like we're talking, I go to bed, around, 9:30, 10 at night, and I'd then just be awake until 1, 2 in the morning laying there. And then I'd fall asleep and it would just be terrible broken sleep and my brain is going crazy. And I'm getting like 2 to 3 hours of sleep a night. And, eventually that kind of subsides and it's like my brain kind of balances out a little bit. Last week wasn't quite as bad as the week before. And fast forward into this week, I feel like I'm sleeping much, much, much better. I think last night was probably the first night that I've really just like slept, I don't know, like a normal human, which then kind of begs the question, maybe I should just stop smoking weed altogether. I mean, do I need weed to have fun? No, I don't need weed to have fun, but I definitely have fun when I'm smoking weed. And I have to admit, I enjoy the way that I view the world. So I don't know if that it's a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know. Maybe I should get back into therapy. Who knows? But either way, I'm on a break. The balance is here, I would say. I think I've kind of turned the corner. So many corners being turned right now in the old PNW. From a weather standpoint, from a fucking hippie lettuce standpoint. My sleep feels good. So now, and I haven't talked boxing for a long time. And I think this is just one of the drawbacks of doing any sport. It doesn't matter what sport, you're doing. And especially as an older person doing a sport, and I'm not saying that I'm old, but comparatively, doing contact sports in your late 40s, you're just bound to get injured. And oh my God, I have been dealing with 2 injuries that are just driving me nuts. And I don't know if any boxers out there or any MMA guys or whatever can, relate to this. I assume you can. My right elbow and my left shoulder. And I hurt my shoulder lifting weights. It wasn't even fucking boxing. I haven't been able to do any contact at boxing because my shoulder has been hurting so fucking bad. Today actually is the first day. Now I think this is the 4th week where I can put a shirt on or take a shirt off and I don't have pain in my shoulder. Like for almost 4 weeks now, I haven't even been able to lift my arm above my head without feeling some level of pain. So, I will applaud myself for that. I'm happy, and I've been smart. I told my coach, do not let me spar. My shoulder is hurt, and here's what here's what I tell Vince. I always disclose my injuries, okay? But what I'll tell him is, if I tell you within the next couple weeks that I'm feeling good, I'm lying to you. I do not feel good. Do not listen to me. I'm full of shit. I just want to get in the ring. And sure as hell, inevitably, and it has happened, within a week, I'm like, yeah, I think I feel pretty good. Let's test it out. And Vince will be like, no, nope, we're not testing it. So I've been good. I've stayed out of the ring. I've had 0 contact. I'm allowing my shoulder to heal. This originally stems from a football injury, back in high school. And then I kept hurting it, and even in college. And, lifting weights over the years. I had a partially torn rotator cuff. And, it was essentially 50-50 whether I should or should not have surgery. So I always opt to not have surgery. I did not want to have shoulder surgery. You have fucking shoulder surgery, like that's months upon months upon months upon months of rehab, of PT, and, the thought of doing that, I just feel my body withering away, even just thinking about it. I do not want to have shoulder surgery. So, a lot of these issues can kind of resolve themselves if you're just smart and you rest and you don't do stupid stuff to continue hurting it, which is exactly what I fucking do because, I raced motorcycles for 14 years and I still ride, dirt bikes, outside of racing. You crash, you land on your shoulder, you hurt yourself, I'm lifting weights. Like, there's always an injury to be had, I feel like, in everything that I do. So on some level, I would like to say that I'm proud of myself because for about the last month, I've been actually smart because I want this fucking shoulder to start feeling better. So this is, I think, my last week that I'm just going to stay chill, no sparring, nothing crazy. And then next week, that'll be now week 5 post-injury. I will maybe try to do 1 or 2 kind of light rounds just to see how it feels, not throwing anything crazy, no power, nothing wild. We'll see how it holds up. I can go kind of hard on the heavy bag, but it'll get fatigued a little bit. But now that the pain is finally starting to go away, I feel like I can kind of push it a little bit. I just don't want to push it too fast. Look, I'm almost 49 years old. I'm going to be 49 in about 3 months. I just don't heal the way that I used to heal. And that is just comes with the territory as you get older. When I was in my teens and my 20s, man, I could break a fucking leg in half and I'm good to go in 2 weeks. That is not the case anymore. If I go run too far, I may not be able to fucking walk for the next 2 days. So I just need to be, I think, a little more realistic about what my body's capable of, considering how hard I still push myself on a day-to-day basis. I still maintain, Wednesdays is essentially my rest day. I may do maybe a little bit of running, but I'm not boxing on Wednesdays. I don't really lift weights on Wednesdays. I don't do much of anything, aside from just going for walks. Sometimes it just sucks getting old. I wish I could have the knowledge that I have now in like a 25-year-old body. Is that kind of like I feel like at 25 physically, maybe 25 to 29, man, you are just physically at your peak. Like I remember I just felt like I was absolutely invincible. Physically, I was still dumb as fuck mentally, but physically, I felt like there was nothing that I couldn't do. There was no sport that I couldn't do. There was no amount of weight that I couldn't lift. There was no injury that I couldn't recover from. I was never sore. It didn't matter how much I hurt myself. The next day, I was ready to go again. And hey, realistically, that is just not the way shit is at 48 years old. I gotta be honest. So I don't know, like maybe I've had some come to Jesus moments, the last few months, and I think if anything, boxing has definitely made me maybe a more responsible athlete to my own well-being. Because the trade-off, it's not fun trying to fight someone when you're injured. Because fighting is hard enough as it is. There's so many other things to worry about in the ring, from a fighting standpoint. I don't need to be thinking about, hey, like, is my fucking shoulder going to pop out of socket? Did I just dislocate my elbow? Like, hey, how come I can't lift my arm? You don't need to be thinking about those kinds of things when you're in the ring trying to avoid not getting fucking punched in the face. So that's kind of my little boxing update. Really not a lot to report. I do know the last time I sparred, which was before I hurt my shoulder, it went okay. It didn't go bad. It didn't go as well as I wanted it to. Some guys came down from another gym, and the guys that were supposed to be there for me to spar, that were within my weight range, they were not able to make it, and I ended up having to essentially spar a fucking ogre giant heavyweight. And let me tell you, when you weigh 165 pounds and you're sparring really any heavyweight, it's fun right up until it's not fun. And I will say one thing. I've had issues in the past, and I've gotten obviously much, much better with my defense about protecting my core. I took a liver shot from this big ogre. He hit me pretty fucking hard in the liver, and it felt like my guts were slushing around inside my stomach. But I gotta say, I was proud of myself. Nobody knew. No, I ate it. I immediately fucking fired back at this guy and then kind of backed off a couple steps, shuffled around a little, gave myself some space, and within 5 seconds I had recovered. Where I feel like, a year ago I would have took that shot and just fucking fell to my knees and rolled on the ground and you guys know, if you've ever been punched in the liver, and I encourage everyone should go get everyone out there who's listening to this, go to your local MMA gym, your local boxing gym, wherever you can find people participating in some form of combat sports, and ask them, hey, is there someone here who's willing to lightly punch me in the liver? I think everyone should experience that at least one time. It's very, very eye-opening. I think everyone thinks that you're going to get like the wind knocked out of you from getting hit square dead center of your stomach. Kind of like in the movies, which is extreme. I would much rather get punched in the fucking stomach any day of the week rather than take a fucking liver shot or getting hit in the solar plex. Liver shots are absolutely awful, and they make me want to puke, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this. They make me want to puke all of my guts out of my mouth. So, hey, on some level, I was actually proud of myself that the big dude hit me in the fucking liver with a very clean shot, too. He got me fucking legit, and I just ate it. And I did what I had to do, and I kept fighting. So, I will say that... Oh man, thank you. Guys, thank you. The studio audience today, very lively. My studio audience is very lively today. They're applauding me for essentially getting blasted in the fucking liver. So thank you for that. I'm taking a bow. Nobody can see that right now, but I'm taking a bow. Hey, I'm going to end up at some point, my goal this year, I'm going to do a fight. I've already told my coach that I want to do a fight. We don't know when it's going to be. It's harder to find masters level fighters than you would think. And since I'm a masters level fighter with 0 fights at kind of a weird weight, I wouldn't say 165 is a weird weight, but I don't know. It seems like most people seem to be my age, just seem to be a lot bigger than that. So that's going to be probably the more challenging aspect of me wanting to do a fight, is just simply finding an opponent that's in my age range and at my experience level. But I'm hopeful, fingers crossed, it'll happen at some point. I don't know when, I don't know where. I'm probably not going to keep anybody updated on this because honestly, I don't want anyone coming to watch. I want no one coming to watch. I want my teammates at the gym to come. I want my coach there. And, I'm probably going to let my friend Elliot know because I consider Elliot one of my coaches from T-Town MMA. So, I'm going to let him know. But outside of that, I don't want anybody there. Nobody's coming. And no one's going to know about it. It's just going to happen. And then I'm going to talk about it. Win, lose, or draw, I don't really care. I think the big thing, I want the experience. I want to have like the more intense kind of workout, like that camp working up to it. I want more consistent, harder sparring sessions. I want the anxiety that you get leading up to the fight, just like with any sport. I want those nerves. I want those jitters. I want that excitement. I want to, go through the weigh-ins, and I want to see my opponent, but, size them up, and, it doesn't matter who I'm fighting, but that's just kind of all the shit that as a human, we do. And this is one hell of a human experience to have, is going into essentially a controlled battle with just you and another human in a ring with a bunch of people watching. Like, it's just such a weird fucking thing, So I want that experience. Maybe I'll do more after the first one, or maybe I'll be good with that one and then we'll call it quits from a competitive standpoint. But I definitely will keep training regardless. But also I know how I am, and if for some reason like the fight doesn't go the way that I want it to, win, lose or draw, if I don't do the things in the ring that maybe I set out to do, or I don't fight the way that I want to fight, I'm gonna want to do it again until. And this is how you end up with 30, 40 fucking fights, because it's a constant work in progress. With any sport, it's a constant work in progress. And it doesn't matter whether you're me, who's just starting out, or you're at, the top of the top, the best fighter in the world. There are, if you're Canelo, there are still things that Canelo works on a daily basis. He's still, after all these probably decades, whenever he very first started boxing at God knows what age he was, I'm guessing single digits, there are still things that you can work on. And that goes for, motorcycle racing, it goes for, enduros, for football, for soccer, tennis. Like, you never stop honing your craft, ever. And all it takes is one bad performance, whether in other people's view or opinion it was a good performance. In your own head, if you have what you feel to be a subpar performance, it's just going to eat at you, and it's just going to drive you insane. And that's always been the kind of athlete that I am. When I perform in a way that I feel like is substandard for whatever the goals I have, or for whatever standard I've set for myself, if I don't meet those expectations, it drives me fucking crazy. And that's when I really become obsessed. And then all I want to do is get back out there and fix what I feel I did wrong that last time. But then what does that do? That just breeds new mistakes, and then you fixate on those, and then you're back to the drawing board, and you work, and then you go back out, and now you try to fix the first set of issues as well as the second set of issues, and then a third set of issues pops up, and it's just this never-ending cycle. And that's exactly why I love sports. That's why I love sports. You're never going to be a master, You get extremely good, and you may even get to be the best in the world at whatever it is your chosen sport is. But that doesn't mean that you can't get better. And, we'll see. Maybe I'll fall into that category where I just become even more obsessed, and, my life just starts to revolve around fighting because I keep identifying issues that I need to work on, and blah, 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 blah. I mean, I'm also old, so my shelf life for fighting is, it's coming up. It's definitely not smart for people my age to be getting punched in the face repeatedly. CTE is a real thing, and I don't want to make myself dumber for my retirement years just because I enjoy the sport of boxing. So I'm keeping a realistic approach. But I also know how I am as a person, so I'm fighting many, many battles. But that is my boxing update. All right, moving on. MotoGP this past weekend They were out in Qatar at the Lusail International Circuit, a circuit that I really want to go to. And obviously, being in the Middle East, it's a hot meatball out there. It's hot. So they don't even race during the day because it's too fucking hot. So they race under the lights. Man, it looks like such a fun track. And if there's one thing that that track does, it seems to promote good racing. And there was a lot of good racing to be had this past weekend. I do want to start off by saying Jorge Martin, the defending MotoGP world champion, who went to Aprilia. He's been fighting injuries all season long. He finally made his debut for this year after having a crazy crash during preseason testing. He was out for a long time, and then when he was just about to come back, he had another crash. Fucking training doing supermoto of all things, and he just shattered his hand. So he had to have surgery on that, and then so he missed the first 3 rounds of the year. And he finally, by no means, are you going to be 100% coming back after, a surgery to fix all those little bones in your hand and in your wrist. But he was good enough to race. He passed his medical and fitness check. He was out there. He finished the sprint race. I think he finished in 16th, 17th, something like that. But hey, he finished. And, he was only like a second and a half off the pace. Considering new bike, I think he hadn't turned more than 15 total laps, before this past weekend. He really is learning the bike. The bike is not his by any means. He's still adapting to that thing. I thought he looked good in the sprint. He looked good in qualifying. You could see why he is the defending world champion. He just needs more seat time on that bike, and he needs to be healthy. Unfortunately, during the main race on Sunday, he had a horrible crash where not only did he crash, but he was also struck by DG, and it was a very ugly, ugly crash. And I want to read this. This came straight from MotoGP's website. Jorge Martin suffered a chest trauma. The rider is conscious without problems with his limbs, rib contusion on the right thorax with pneumothorax. I can't pronounce that because I am not a medical professional. He will be taken to the hospital to perform a CT for in-depth investigation, and I believe he's still in Qatar right now. He's in the hospital. He has put out a couple of updates via social media, essentially saying that, he's doing as well as he can be and that he is, very lucky. And a lot of people would say that, oh my God, he's injured again. He's very, God, he's so unlucky with these injuries. Well, I'm looking at it from the standpoint of Jorge Martin is extremely lucky that he didn't get killed in that crash. Because if we think back, okay, and, let's not forget what happened to Marco Simoncelli. It was a very similar crash. And when Colin Edwards hit him in a very similar manner and, ultimately resulting in Simoncelli getting killed, I think that was what I immediately thought of. And I thought, oh my God, I really hope that this is not one of those kinds of crashes. Excuse me for a second. gotta say, I was not planning on getting emotional about this. That Simoncelli crash was such an ugly crash. And I remember how it made me feel in the moment because I was such a big fan of his and the way he rode and the personality that he was. And I just had a flashback to that, and that was a tough one, you know. And here we are 14 years later, and I'm happy that Jorge Martin will recover from this. It's the ugly side of the sport. Crashes happen every year, you know, around the world, in this country. It doesn't matter what series it is. It's a small community as a whole. You know, motorcycle racing is definitely very popular outside of this country. It's not as popular in this country, you know, and I understand why it's not, and that'll be for another episode. But every year there are racers, whether it's at the club level, whether it's at the you know, whatever national level, you know, Moto America, the BSB, Australian Superbike, you know, the Japan Superbike, you know, you pick a series. You know, there's World Superbike, there's MotoGP, you know, every year in any of the various series that are around the world, there's gonna be riders that get killed. And, you know, we wear the gear to keep ourselves as safe as possible. The tracks, you know, the facility owners, they try to make the circuits as safe as possible. You know, the medical staff being right on scene with helicopters on scene, so that if there is some sort of traumatic, you know, crash, they can get help to people as soon as possible. But it's motorcycle racing, you know, at the end of the day. And you are only protected by, you know, a helmet, by a thin layer of leather. You know, you got boots, you got gloves, and that's it, you know. And there's, you know, a lot of these leather manufacturers now, you know, airbag vests are required, you know, underneath. But they can only do so much. And unless you've been through, you know, a high-speed crash, or hell, even a slow-speed crash, honestly, it's hard to explain the feeling when you have zero control over your body. There's nothing that you can do. My fastest crash was at Laguna Seca in turn 6, and I crashed at about 120 miles an hour. That was my fastest crash. Somewhere, I don't know, probably somewhere around going that speed. And as a racer, you know, in my mind, I think I can control this situation right up until you're no longer on the bike. And then you are nothing more than a passenger, to physics at that point, and there's nothing you can do. The ragdolling, it's extremely violent. You can't control your limbs, and it all happens so fast. And you just hope that you haven't broken any bones, or hell, you hope that you hope that if you are awake, that you haven't been knocked out for the past 5-10 minutes. You have no idea. And but that's just a part of the sport, and I think it's why there's such a close bond between racers. And it's not just motorcycle racing. Car racers experience the same thing. There have been a lot of car racers over the years and the various series around the world that have been killed, and it definitely creates a bond between these pilots, so to speak, that I haven't experienced in any other sport. And I've had friends that have gotten killed, and virtually all my friends who have raced have had crazy crashes, some crazier than others. The thing about motorcycles that you hear people say, there's only two kinds of riders. There are riders who haven't crashed, or I should say, there are two kinds of there are riders who have crashed, and there are riders who will crash. Like those are the only kinds of motorcycle riders that there are. And just because you haven't crashed yet, especially if you race, you're going to crash. It's just a matter of time. I'm very happy that Jorge Martin did not get killed. I'm very happy that he's going to recover from this, and he's going to get back out there again. Personally, I feel like this season is shot for him, and I would hope that he just calls it a season and just focuses on coming back next year. But that's not the way these guys are wired. So, I feel like he's going to rehab as hard as he can, and he's probably going to try to come back towards the end of the season, just to, try to have some sort of showing and have, some sort of positive end to what has been an otherwise just awful season physically for him and emotionally for him, So yeah, I think both things can be true. He's lucky, he's unlucky in that, he has all these injuries this season. Like it's been crazy. But again, like I said, I'm choosing to look at it. He's lucky that he didn't get killed out there on Sunday. He's lucky he didn't get killed. And I feel bad for DG as well, because as a rider, you don't want to be involved in something like that where someone gets seriously injured and or killed. Nobody wants to be involved in that. Nobody does. It's traumatic for everybody that's involved. Not just the person who crashed, but if you get mixed up in that and you, God forbid, you run someone over, that fucks with your head too. Like it really does. So that's all I'm going to say on that. On behalf of the Jake Brown podcast, I want to wish Martin a speedy recovery. And like I said, I hope he just chooses to sit the rest of this season out and just focus on your physical health, focus on your mental health, and then next year you come back even stronger and ready to rock and roll. The race itself, though, it is what it always is out in Qatar. It was a great race overall. And from just a fan standpoint, and again, that's all I am here. I'm just a fan. I'm not the media. I don't type out articles. I'm not publishing nothing. I get on my podcast, I turn my mic on, and I just start fucking rambling about the things that I enjoy about the sport of MotoGP. And I've said it a million times, and hell, I think I almost did a whole damn segment about Marc Marquez and how great he is, and about all the great athletes, that we've had from across all different kinds of sports. What we saw from Marquez was simply a masterclass. Like, it really was. And he even said, going into the race, that this particular track, between how hot it is, even at night, you're in the fucking Middle East, it's hot as a motherfucker there, okay? It is a race of who can manage their tires the best. If you try to go out too fast, you are going to burn your tires up, and you are going to fade that last third of the race, and you're done. Your race is going to be done, And that carrot is always going to be there. That carrot's always going to be there, because the pace does not start off as fast as it would at really any other track. These guys aren't pushing as hard as they're capable of pushing, even for a race pace, simply because they don't want to completely burn their tires up and have nothing left for the end. So Marc Marquez rode an extremely smart race. And I think that's almost more terrifying for his competitors at this point than simply his talent alone. No one has ever questioned his talent. Nobody. But I think with Marc Marquez and what he's demonstrated over the years, especially from his rookie year, all the way through all of his Honda years, okay, was that he was probably clearly the most talented, gifted rider that was out there. And when he was on, nobody, not Lorenzo, not Rossi, nobody's beaten Marc Marquez. All right? The only person, he's a lot like James Stewart in that aspect. James Stewart was either going to win or he was going to crash. And Marquez, until he actually took the checkered flag of any given race, you're not exhaling, because there's always that chance that he was going to crash out, whether he was in the lead, fighting for second, fighting for third, fighting for top fives, whatever. There's always that threat that he was just going to crash. And he had done it. There were times, just like he did at Coda earlier this year, when he had a 2.5 second lead. He's in the lead, comfortably cruising to a victory, and he inexplicably crashes because he chooses to go over the curb by a couple inches, and he should know better, and he admits it. He screwed up. He made a mistake. That's just the way Marc Marquez is. Even when the race is won, it's in hand, it's virtually in the bag, he is still riding on the absolute ragged razor edge, and that threat to crash out is always there. And I feel like what I'm seeing this year is just a more mature, a more patient Marc Marquez, that even though he's the most talented person out there, he's now not just relying on his talent to win. Now he's out there playing chess. You want to go out, Frankie, you want to go out and lead like the first 5, 6, 7 laps of the race? You want to get like a 1.5 second, 2 second lead to start this motherfucker? Go ahead. And he did. He let him get out there, and he let Franco push the pace, and he sat back in second place. He even dropped back to third a couple times. Okay? And he knew that this is a 21-lap race, and I'll see you with 7 to go, if you're even still there. Because there's no need to really push at the beginning, because the real race isn't going to start until we hit that probably, 9 to 11 lap range remaining. That's when the race is really starting. That's everybody saved their tires. The guys who are in the back trying to fight their way up to the front, they're burning their tires up because they have to, because they got shitty grid positions, because they didn't qualify well. And the only chance they have to win is to fight like hell, clawing tooth and nail, trying to get to the front so that they have a shot to win. Okay? The guys who are already up at the front, they're running a quick pace, but they're being smart about it. For the most part, they're being smart about it. You know, you don't want to fall too far back, but you're not going to run a pace, you know. I don't even want to say kind of what Frankie did, because he still managed his tires pretty well the entire race. But you just don't want to go crazy at the beginning, because you got to have something left at the end. You have to. You have to. Unless you can guarantee that everyone's tires are going to go out, and you can't guarantee that, you got to be smart at the beginning. That first third of the race, you just have to be smart. All right? 300 horsepower bikes that weigh like 225 pounds, you're going to chew some fucking tires up. Marc Marquez is using his brain. So now he's got two things better than you. Now he's using good racecraft, good tactics, and he's just more talented, and he's just better than you on a motorcycle. And he showed that. He rode such a good race. It was so much fun to watch. That wasn't even the coolest thing about the race. I gotta say, and I think I said last time, look, KTM, I just felt like KTM was fucking lost. It just seemed like KTM was in no man's land. And I don't know what's going on. I think some of it might have to do, you know, at the corporate level with all their financial, you know, struggles that they've been having. Acosta did not look happy up until this round. You know, Bastianini just looks completely lost out there. Maverick is Maverick. He's up and down regardless of what bike he's on. And right now he's on the KTM, and sometimes he looks good, and sometimes he doesn't look good. And Brad Binder, I don't know. Brad, I feel like he's underachieving to a certain extent. He's got the most experience on the KTM of all of them. I think this is year 6 for him on the KTM. I just expect him to be doing better than what he is doing, but for whatever reason, he is just not meshing with this bike right now. Who knows? Maybe he needs a change of scenery. Maybe I don't know. I don't know what the deal is, but something just doesn't seem right with Brad Binder in this KTM. But I'm watching this race unfold, and it's like I just keep seeing a name slowly moving up the leaderboard. Just like every couple laps, there's Maverick Vinales moving up the leaderboard. And I'm like, what in the hell is Maverick doing? And he actually, and what is Maverick Vinales notorious for screwing up every single race? What is he notorious for? Anyone? Anyone out there? If you watch MotoGP, or if you are remotely any sort of fan of motorcycle racing, you know Maverick Vinales from his Suzuki days, to his Yamaha days, to his Aprilia days, and now even with KTM, he's terrible with a full fuel load at the start. For whatever reason, he chunks his starts, and he doesn't ride the way he does with a full fuel tank. Now, once that tank burns down halfway through the race, his pace, for whatever reason, starts picking up. He gets in a groove, and he'll usually be running lap times comparable to the guys fighting for the podium. And then you say to yourself, why can't you just do that shit at the beginning, and then you're fighting for victories, you know? So what happened this past weekend? Oh man, Maverick nailed his start. And he essentially just stayed in the top 5, top 6, and then he just starts moving up. Every couple laps, oh, now he's in 5th place. Couple more laps, oh, now he's in 4th place. Couple more laps, he closed a pretty good sized gap to Franco. Or to, if I remember, maybe Pecco. Oh, geez, now I need to look at my notes. Maybe I didn't write that down. All I wrote down for him was that he got a great start, but I know that when he got from fourth to third, he had to close a pretty good sized gap. And he got into the podium places, and eventually he works his way up into the lead. Now, here's the problem with this stupid tire pressure rule. No one at KTM, no one on that Tech 3 team expected him to be getting clean air on that tire. They thought he was going to get dirty air, not ever being in the lead. So, and I'm not going to lose my shit about this because I understand it's the rule. I don't agree with the rule. It's a dumb rule. Ultimately, he got penalized for having too low of air pressure in his tire. That was very, very frustrating. But the fact that he worked his way all the way up into first place, led multiple laps, and now looking back, clearly was notified. And I think he was notified that his tire pressure was getting too low, so he had to let Marquez through, try to build that up. But by that point, Marquez knew the race was coming to an end. I believe it was with 7 laps remaining. He essentially went wide through a turn. Marquez goes through, but then Marquez had more tire under him, and he basically started to check out after that point. Pulled a second gap after a couple laps. And that was all she wrote. But just seeing Maverick Vinales being competitive on that KTM, well, now I'm thinking maybe it's not the KTM. Maybe the bike is fine. Because those Tech 3 guys, they're on the exact same bikes as the factory KTMs. That's the cool thing about KTM. Everybody's on the same bikes there. They're not getting knockoff shit. They're not getting neglected parts. When KTM essentially has 4 factory riders, 2 of them are technically KTM factory riders. The other 2 are the KTM Tech 3, team. But they're getting just as much factory support as the factory riders. From a data standpoint, you're getting a lot more data that way, So Vinales is on the same bike as everybody else that's on a KTM. So that begs the question. What's up with the other 3 KTMs? What's up with Acosta? And Acosta did pretty good. I'm not saying he didn't do good. He finished in 8th. He was 14 seconds back, though. That seems like a pretty big gap, considering last year, even though he was on the gas, that's still a KTM. Last year, Acosta was fighting for podiums and scoring podiums. This year, he really hasn't been sniffing the podium at all. So, look, I don't know what's going on with that. All I know is I hope this is what kickstarts Vinales into, maybe finally realizing the potential that he has. And maybe he can start again fighting for victories. He took it to Marquez. I'm not going to lie. He took it right to Marquez. Marquez punched, Vinales punched back, and then Marquez punched harder and did what he did. And checked out and won the race by 4.5 seconds because that's what, Marquez ultimately does. But Vinales is as talented as anybody that's out there. And there's no reason he can't be, fighting for victories. And I really hope that that this is the start of something good for Maverick, because I like the guy. I mean, obviously, I don't know any of these guys, but he seems like he seems very grounded. He's very humble. He's very quiet. Very much just a family man. He's got 2 beautiful little girls. He has good perspective. I think that's a good way to describe Vinales. And I think we want these guys to be just all racing all the time, 100%, nothing else matters. And that's just not the way he is. I think he's a little more cerebral. He understands that, yes, he loves motorcycle racing, but ultimately it's a small portion of his life. It is his job. And, his family and his family's well-being is ultimately, that's more important. And, yeah, I want these guys to be killers out there, but I also enjoy the human moments that all these athletes in whatever sport, one of the coolest things, and I don't think I've talked about this, after, these races end and, they park the bikes, and in between when they park the bikes and the top three are in the little podium area, and then they make their way to the podium celebration, there's about a 10-minute span there between when they are leaving their bikes, doing the immediate interview, to when they do the actual podium celebration. And they'll kind of usually be in like a little side room, and it's just the three podium guys. And it's not like an official, event, I would say, but there's always a TV, and the three podium finishers sit there while they're waiting for the podium stuff, the awards to get, all those staff, the MotoGP staff are getting everything organized. And the three podium finishers just sit and they just watch highlights of the race. And they just bullshit. And they bullshit in their native language, so it's usually, more often than not, it's either Spanish and Italian or Italian. And what's cool about all these guys, like all these guys have been racing each other since they were like little kids. And a lot of them, especially from outside of Spain or Italy, they moved to Europe when they were very, very, very young to chase their dreams of being, professional motorcycle racers. Quartararo, I think he moved to Spain when he was like 12 or 13. Casey Stoner did the same thing. Like, this is what all these, Zarco did the same. This is what these guys do. If you want to make it on the world stage at some point, you have to move to Spain or you have to move to Italy. That's just the way it is. Or you're not going to really get noticed, and you're going to race in obscurity in a national level, and maybe you'll break out. Ben Spies was one of the few who was able to essentially just race in the AMA Superbike Series. He got noticed, and then in 2009 he moved to World Superbike, won the World Superbike title in his rookie season on the Yamaha, and then in 2010 he moved to MotoGP. That's rare. Okay, that doesn't happen very often. It really doesn't. The more typical path is you are a little kid racing in your home country, you are having a lot of success, and then your family essentially rolls the fucking dice, and you either all move to Spain or the kid moves to Spain and lives maybe with another family or friends or whatever, and then you race. And school gets put on the back burner. Everything gets put on the back burner. But all these guys are all, I wouldn't just say bilingual, they're trilingual. So you'll hear, like if there's two Spaniards and an Italian, everybody's speaking Spanish. If there's two Italians and one Spaniard, everybody's speaking Italian. If there's a French guy and two Italians, even the French guy is speaking Italian. All these guys, they all speak Spanish, they all speak Italian, they all speak English, and it's such a cool moment. It's almost like you're eavesdropping on something you're not supposed to be watching. And you're listening to the three podium finishers debrief about how the race went, what they saw. Oh man, I saw you do that in that turn. Oh, that was crazy. We had contact exiting this turn. Shit, man, I didn't realize you were there. And MotoGP does a great job of just letting that organic moment happen and not trying to force these guys to speak English, which, in my opinion, is absolutely not organic in the least bit. I want to hear these guys conversing with each other the way they do when the cameras aren't around. And an overwhelming majority of the time, the way that these guys communicate with each other is either in their home language, which is either Spanish or Italian, because most of these guys are from Spain or Italy, or it's in Italian, because, like I just said, most of these guys are from Spain or Italy. And it's such a cool moment to see. I can't sit here and say it's my favorite part of any race, but those behind the scenes moment that are just raw, they're organic. Those are the kinds of things that are beautiful about this sport. There's a lot to this sport that is beautiful. That's just one of the things that I love, and it's like 8 to 10 minutes long. And MotoGP has been doing a good job about posting those videos in full, whether they're, 5 minutes, 10 minutes long. They'll put subtitles in for all of us idiots who only speak one language, Americans. It's such a cool thing to see. So, if you're already a fan and you're not aware of that, search those videos out. You can follow, the MotoGP on Instagram or on Twitter, X, and they post all that stuff there. It's a cool moment at the end of a race, which, I don't know. I love seeing it. I'm glad they're not trying to, cheapen it, by turning it into something that it doesn't need to be. Just leave it organic. Just let these guys just be themselves. And goddamn, I love this sport. That's my show for today. Oh, hang on. Oh, hang on. There we go. Jeez. This is an interesting show today. This was an interesting show today. I appreciate everyone who tunes in. Again, my social medias, at Jake Brown Pod on X and on Instagram. Hey, I got iHeartRadio finally sorted out, so if you consume your podcast on iHeartRadio, you will be able to find me there. I'm also back on YouTube again. I noticed from an analytical standpoint a dip in my numbers, and I think that's because I threw a hissy fit and left YouTube for a bit. So I'm back on YouTube. You can just search the Jake Brown Pod, Amazon Music, Spotify, iTunes, I don't know, wherever else you find your podcasts. Feel free to subscribe, leave a review. That's all I got for today. Until the next show, take care of yourselves and your mental health, and I will see you later.